our lecture today, we are going to continue with the two different types of circulatory system. Actually, on our last lecture, we have gone through what is open circulatory system, and briefly we have looked also at the closed circulatory system. Okay, so for open circulatory system, to recap, is the circulatory system that still involve the heart. Okay, so the heart will pump the blood into an open-ended blood vessels. Okay, so it means that when the heart pumps the blood into blood vessels, because the blood vessels is not continuous, okay, so the blood will end up in the body cavity. We call it as hemocoel. Okay, so when the blood enter into the hemocoel region of the body of that organism, so the blood will get mixed with the interstitial fluid. So the mixture between interstitial fluid and also the blood, we call it as hemolymph. Okay, hemolymph. Okay, so for this type of circulatory system, the open circulatory system, they are found in insects, arthropods, okay, such as grasshopper, and also mollusk, such as snails. Okay, haiwan yang ada cengkerang lah kan. So mollusk, snails, and also clams, okay, oysters. So that is for open circulatory system. Okay, so they have blood, but the blood will get mixed with the interstitial fluid. Okay, so and the body movement will help circulate the hemolymph. Okay, because the heart will pump the blood into open-ended blood vessels, so this will reduce the blood pressure, and in order to help the blood to supply, okay, to supply nutrients or oxygen to every part of the body, to every cells of the body. So it depends also on body movement, okay, to help circulate the hemolymph. Okay, so now we are going to look at the closed circulatory system. So this is the definition, which is a circulatory system in which blood, which is the circulating fluid, is confined to blood vessels. Okay, so blood vessels are artery, blood capillaries, and also the veins. Okay, so the blood is only found in the blood vessels, and there will be no mixture between blood and also the interstitial fluid. Okay, the blood is distinct, okay, from the interstitial fluid. So example of organism with a closed circulatory system are invertebrates like annelids, earthworm. Okay, hari tu kita tengok kalau flatworm lain kan, flatworm dia it depends on gastrovascular cavity because of the flat body structure. Okay, so flatworm, they have gastrovascular cavity, they don't have any heart. Okay, but for earthworm, okay, so they have a closed circulatory system. Cephalopods such as squids and also octopus, so they also have a closed circulatory system, and obviously all vertebrates, including humans. Okay, all animals, bird, fishes. Okay, so they have closed circulatory system. So it consists of the heart pumping blood into a continuous blood vessels. So you have the heart pumping blood into artery, into arterioles, into blood capillaries. So blood capillaries will surround body tissues. Okay, we surround body tissues to make sure there is efficient exchange of materials between blood and also body cells. Okay, so oxygen will diffuse from blood into interstitial fluid, into body cell, and vice versa. Carbon dioxide enters, and then the oxygen poor blood will enter into the venules, into vein, and back to the heart. Okay, so for closed circulatory system, okay, closed circulatory system, it has two types, okay, which is single circulation and double circulation. Okay, so single circulation is where the heart pumps the blood once throughout the body. Okay, throughout the body. But for double circulation, the heart will pump the blood twice. Okay, the first pumping of the blood will pump the blood to the pulmonary circuit. Okay, pulmonary circuit where deoxygenated blood will be converted into oxygenated blood and back to the heart, where the heart will pump the blood into the systemic circuit. Okay, systemic circuit where in the systemic circuit it will distribute oxygen-rich blood to all parts of your body to supply oxygen, for example. Okay. So double circulation. So double circulation dia ada dua. Satu pulmonary circuit. Okay, pulmonary circuit which is to the lung. Okay, and then systemic circuit which is to all body region. Okay, so first we are going to look at the single circulation for fish. Okay, so the fish heart consists of two chambers. Okay, it only have one atrium and one ventricle. Okay, so one atrium and one ventricle. So the blood passes through the heart once. Okay, so that's why it is single circulation. So in each complete circuit. So this arrangement is called as single circulation. So the oxygen poor blood, okay, selalunya bila dalam gambar rajah yang berkala, salur darah yang berwarna biru, it carries oxygen poor blood. Okay, salur darah yang berwarna merah, it carries oxygen rich blood. Okay, so you have to take note of that. Okay. So oxygen poor blood, deoxygenated blood enters into the atrium and then into the ventricle. So the ventricle will pump the oxygen poor blood into the gill circulation. So in the gills where gaseous exchange occurs, so carbon dioxide diffuse out, okay, oxygen diffuse in from the water source. So the medium for that carries the respiratory gas is the water. Okay. For fish, obviously. Okay, so oxygen enters into the blood in the blood capillaries, and then from the gill capillaries, it will be distributed throughout the body in the systemic circuit. Okay, so oxygen rich blood will enter into blood capillaries for exchange of gas, exchange of nutrients, and also waste, and then the oxygen poor blood will enter back into the heart through the atrium. Okay, so that is single circulation. The heart will pump once for a complete circuit. Okay, still has two circulation, the gill circulation and also systemic circulation, but the heart will pump the blood only once. Okay, so the disadvantage of this single circulation, okay, single circulation is that as the ventricle pumps out the blood and enters into the blood vessels in the blood capillaries in the gills, the blood pressure will be reduced. Okay, the blood pressure will be reduced. Kalau tengok kat sini, asalnya tekanan darah, kan, the blood pressure is high. Okay, the blood pressure is high, but as the blood enters into the many blood capillaries, the pressure of the blood will be reduced. Okay, so once the blood is out of the gill capillaries, obviously the blood pressure will be reduced. But for fish, they are not so big as compared to the mammals. Okay, so in order to aid in the movement of the blood, so the swimming motion will also aid. Okay, will also aid in the blood circulation. Tadi kalau insects, okay, insects dia also depends on body movement. Kalau fish, okay, because the blood pressure reduces as the blood moves out of the gill capillary. So in order to aid in the movement of blood throughout the body in the systemic circuit, okay, in the systemic circulation, so the swimming motion will also aid in the movement of blood. Okay, so contraction, it says here, point number 3, contraction of ventricle pumps blood into gills capillary. So in gills there is a net diffusion of oxygen into the blood and carbon dioxide out. So the medium is water, I said before. Okay, and then as fish swims, okay, contraction and relaxation of muscles helps accelerate blood circulation. Okay, sebab as the blood moves out of the gills capillary, the blood pressure will be reduced. Okay, so the swimming motion of the fish helps contraction and relaxation of muscles that helps to circulate the blood. Okay, so for double circulation, these are for the more active animals. Okay, the animals that have bigger body plan, that are more active, so they have double circulation. Okay, so such as amphibians, reptiles, mammals, and they have double circulation. So this is the definition for double circulation. It is a circulatory system consisting of separate pulmonary and systemic circuit. Okay, pulmonary to the lung, okay, and systemic circuit throughout the body. Okay, so in which the blood passes through the heart after completing each circuit. So this is the definition from Campbell. Okay, so you can look at other books for definition. So you have your reference book as well, right? Okay, so how do you look at the definition? Certain terms punya definition, you look at the glossary. Mana nak jumpa glossary dalam buku? Where can you find the glossary in your reference book? Kat mana? I hope you are listening to what I am delivering. Bukan sekadar buka kamera, buka join the session. I hope you are listening. So glossary dekat mana? Dalam
page belakang.
Dekat page belakang kan. So dia dah susun ikut alphabetical order lah kan. Kalau awak nak cari pasal whatever terms, you just search at the glossary. Sama juga kalau nak cari information on reading materials on certain topic, or pergi ke index. Okay, dia dah susun ikut alphabetical order. So make sure you know how to use your reference book. Buku reference awak ni tebal. Bukan semua masuk dalam awak punya syllabus. Bukan macam buku teks sekolah kan. So dia dah, kalau buku teks sekolah dah susun chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4 dan seterusnya. Tapi kalau buku reference ni bila dah masuk universiti, kita tak ada dah textbook yang susun ikut syllabus yang kita belajar. So you must know how to use the reference book. Okay, so if you are looking on reading on hormones, for example, or certain specific hormone, okay, such as epinephrine, so pergilah cari dekat epinephrine, nanti dia bagi muka surat macam tu. Okay, so make sure you know how to use your reference book. Okay, so make sure you use. Alright. Okay, so advantage. Okay, advantage of double circulation provides a vigorous blood flow to the body organs. This is because after the blood passes through the capillary beds in the lungs or the skin, so the heart will pressurizes the blood, then deliver to body. Okay, so to the lung is for most animals lah, for mammals, okay, for reptiles. Okay, so to the lung, which we call it as the pulmonary, okay, circuit. There are also some animals, okay, that depends on the skin for gaseous exchange, okay, such as frogs. Okay, so frogs depends on the skin and also lungs for gaseous exchange. So this one is, we call it as pulmocutaneous circuit. Okay, to the lung and to the skin for gaseous exchange. Okay, so that is the advantage of double circulation. So the heart will pump for the first time, so that it enters into the pulmonary circuit or pulmocutaneous circuit for gaseous exchange, and then back to the heart. Okay, and then the heart will pump oxygen-rich blood again to the systemic circuit, because the systemic circuit is the longest circuit that pumps that distribute the oxygen-rich blood throughout the body. Okay, So for amphibians, okay, the first organism that we are going to look at here. Okay, so for double circulation, that is. Okay, so for amphibians, frogs and other amphibians, okay, amphibians, so they have 3-chambered heart. So kalau ikan tadi single circulation, 2-chambered. Okay, amphibian 3-chambered heart. Okay, 3-chambered heart, and they depend on double circulation. So they have 2 atria and 1 ventricle. Okay, 2 atria and 1 ventricle. Okay, so a ridge in ventricle divert most, which is about 90% of oxygen rich blood from the left atrium, okay, to the systemic circuit, and most oxygen poor blood from the right atrium into the pulmocutaneous circuit. So pulmocutaneous circuit, it involves both the lungs and also the skin for gaseous exchange. Okay, so these are for frogs. So a ridge maksudnya dekat sini, if you look at the structure of the frog's heart, okay, so the this is the right, okay, the right atrium. Okay, so the right atrium will receive oxygen poor blood. Okay, oxygen poor blood from the systemic capillaries, and then into the ventricle that also receive oxygen rich blood coming from the left atrium. Okay, so there will be a slight mixture. Okay, a slight mixture of blood here. Okay, but kalau tengok kat sini akan ada ridge. Okay, a ridge macam apa maksud ridge ah? Dia macam permukaan kat situ tak sekata. Okay, so dia permukaan kat sini tak sekata, dan dia akan divert kan, that ridge in the ventricle will divert the blood, okay, the oxygen poor blood into the pulmocutaneous circuit, and oxygen rich blood into the systemic circuit. Okay. Okay, so permukaan dia tak rata dekat bahagian tengah tu. Okay, alright. Okay, so if we looked at the blood circulation of amphibians, okay, the heart is divided into 2 regions, the right region and the left region. The right atrium, the ventricle, and also the left atrium and also the ventricle. Sama juga untuk mammals ataupun reptiles ataupun bird. The right part of the heart will always receive oxygen poor blood. Okay, the right part, the right ventricle or the left ventricle will always receive oxygen poor blood. Tapi for the left part, it always receive oxygen rich blood. So that's why it is in red. Okay. Okay, so next is for mammals. So mammals and also birds. So mammals and birds have 4-chambered heart. Okay, 2 atria, the right atrium, left atrium, right ventricle, and the left ventricle. Okay, so the 2 sides of the heart are separated by septum. Okay, by septum, a complete septum. So therefore the ventricle are completely separated, and there will be no mixture between the oxygen rich blood and the oxygen poor blood. Okay, so the left side of the heart, okay, left atrium, left ventricle, will receive and pump oxygen rich blood. Okay, the right side of the heart, the right atrium, right ventricle, will receive and pump oxygen poor blood. Receive is by the atrium, pump is by the ventricle. Pump, it means that it pumps the blood out of the heart. Okay, the chamber pumps the blood out of the heart. Okay, so blood enters the heart twice. Okay, each time it tours the body twice. One, the heart pumps the blood into the pulmonary circuit. Okay, and then back into the heart, and then pumps the blood again into the systemic circuit. So this is to repressurize the blood, okay, with high pressure as it enters into the systemic circuit to distribute blood throughout the body. Okay, so their circulatory system needs to deliver much more oxygen and also nutrients to body tissues, and also to remove carbon dioxide and also metabolic wastes. Okay, so path of blood flow in mammals. Okay, so we break for 2 minutes sekejap. Okay, so you just go through what we have covered. If you have question, you can ask. Okay, 2 minutes. Okay, so now we are going to continue on the next part, which is path of blood flow in mammals. Okay, in mammals. So mammals, they depend on double circulation, the pulmonary circuit and also the systemic circuit. Okay, so first we need to know, or go through the structure and the function of heart and also blood vessels. Okay, structure and function of heart and also blood vessels. Okay, so let's look at the structure of the heart. Okay, so the human heart is located in the thoracic cavity. Okay, in the thoracic cavity behind the sternum, which is the breastbone. So you can cuba rasa kat tengah dada awak tu keras kan, breastbone. So under that is your heart. Okay, so the region, okay, inside, we call it as the thoracic cavity. Okay, so it is found between the lungs, with the apex of the heart slightly oriented to the left. So this is the apex of the heart. Hujung jantung tu kan, hujung jantung ni kan, so it is slightly oriented to the left side. Okay, so the size is not much bigger than your fist. Okay, so awak genggam awak punya tangan tu, penumbuk awak tu, itulah besar jantung awak. Okay, so consists mostly of cardiac muscle. Okay, consists of mostly of cardiac muscle. So the cardiac muscle is able to generate its own impulse, okay, to cause the contraction of the heart muscle. So the contraction of the heart muscle depends on the heart muscle itself. It is not from the instruction of the brain. Okay, so heart structure. So the heart is enclosed by a double wall protective sac called the pericardium, which help to protect the heart. So this is the heart. So outside you have a layer, okay, a layer of double wall sac, which is the pericardium. So we call it as the pericardium. So the pericardium has two layers, the fibrous pericardium and also the serous pericardium. for the serous pericardium, dia bahagian lapisan yang dalam sikit. Kalau fibrous dekat luar. Yang warna biru. Yang warna lapisan kat luar tu. Fibrous pericardium. Okay, yang bahagian dalam is serous pericardium, which divided, which is it has another layer, which is the parietal pericardium. Okay, and the visceral pericardium or the epicardium. Okay, so the epicardium yang bahagian nipis kat luar heart ni lah, kat sini. Okay, the epicardium. So in between you have the in between the layers. Okay, there is pericardial fluid. Okay, pericardial fluid. Okay, so there is space. We call it as the pericardial cavity. So in that cavity, it has fluid called the pericardial fluid. So this is to reduce friction. Okay, during the pumping of the heart. Okay. If you refer to your reading materials, if I'm not mistaken, the function of the fibrous pericardium is to attach the heart into the surrounding organs. Okay, which is kalau ada tak nota dia punya note kat sini. Tak ada pula. Dia dah keluarkan. Okay, so the fibrous pericardium is to attach the heart structure to the surrounding organs. Okay, and patutnya ada notes juga. Okay, the pericardial fluid is to reduce friction. Okay, during the pumping of the heart. Okay, so the heart wall. Okay, so the heart wall, it has 3 tissue layers. Okay, so the inner layer, okay, bahagian dalam, the layer that is facing the heart chambers. Okay, the heart chambers, the chamber of the atrium, the chamber of the ventricle is the endocardium. Bahagian dalam ni. Okay, the endocardium. So it is the innermost layer. It is thin. Okay, thin and also smooth. It has to have a smooth surface. Okay, so because the blood will be inside the chamber, so this is to make sure that the blood will flow nicely. Okay, inside the heart chambers. So it has a thin and smooth layer of epithelial cells that aligns the heart interior. It provides a smooth surface, okay, for easy flow as blood travels through the heart. Okay, so the most thickest layer is the myocardium. Okay, so the cardiac muscle, the myocardium. So it is the thickest layer. It pumps blood through the vessels. So they are myogenic and generate their own excitatory impulse. Okay, so the heart muscle is capable of generating its own impulse so that it causes the cardiac muscle to be able to contract and relax. Okay, so the contraction of the heart muscles is generated by the heart muscle itself. Okay, specifically the initial place. Okay, the initial place to initiate the impulse is the SA node. Okay, the SA node, which is located at the wall of the right atrium. Okay, so and then the outer layer is the epicardium, which is part of the serous tadi. Kan, part of the serous pericardium, bahagian lapisan dalam heart tu dia ada sac tu kan, so dia ada parietal and also visceral. Visceral is also known as the epicardium. Okay, so the epicardium is a serous membrane that forms the thin and outermost layer of the heart wall. Okay, so this is the heart wall lah. So dekat luar tu, dekat bahagian just wrapping the heart, you have the pericardium. Okay, which is a protective sac. Okay. Okay, so this is the blood vessels and also the chambers of the heart. So the diagram may look complicated. Okay, the diagram may look complicated, but look at the heart structure one by one, satu per satu. Jangan terus tengok sekaligus, tu dia akan buat awak jadi gelabah kat situ. So sebenarnya dia mudah je. Okay, so you look at we will start here. We will start dekat sini dulu. The right, okay, the right atrium. Okay, so the right atrium will receive oxygen per blood coming from here and also here. So this is what? Blood vessels. This is the inferior vena cava and the superior vena cava. Yang bawah, inferior vena cava. Atas adalah superior vena cava. Okay, the superior vena cava, it receives oxygen per blood from the upper part of your body. Okay, the inferior vena cava, the lower part of your body. Okay, abdomen and also the legs. Okay, bahagian bawah. Okay, so oxygen per blood will enter into the right atrium and then into the right ventricle. Okay, through the atrioventricular valve. Okay, atrioventricular valve or AV valve. Okay, so the right ventricle, okay, the right ventricle will pump oxygen per blood, okay, out of the heart through the pulmonary artery. Okay, pulmonary artery. So the pulmonary artery will convey the blood to the lungs. Okay, to the lungs. So pulmonary artery dia bercabang bercabang ke kiri dan juga ke kanan, so that it conveys blood to both side of your lungs. So we have the right lungs and also the left lungs. Okay, so that's why you see that the pulmonary artery, it has it diverge into two region. Okay, the left side and the right side of the lung. So the lung is the systemic circuit. Okay, the pulmonary circuit. So that will occur gaseous exchange and oxygen-rich blood will enter back into the heart through the pulmonary vein. Okay, so the pulmonary vein will receive oxygen-rich blood, okay, from the lungs, from the pulmonary circuit, and enters into the left atrium. Okay, into the left atrium and into the left ventricle through the AV valve also. Okay, atrioventricular valve. Okay, into the left ventricle, and then the left ventricle will pump the blood out of the heart, okay, through the aorta, okay, which passes through the semilunar valve. Okay, semilunar valve kita ada dua kan, kiri dan kanan. Okay, semilunar valve is between, okay, semilunar valve kita ada dua. Okay, semilunar valve is between the ventricle and also the major blood vessels. Okay, the right ventricle into the pulmonary artery, the left ventricle into the aorta. So from left ventricle to the aorta is through the semilunar valve. Right ventricle into the pulmonary artery is through the also semilunar valve. Okay. So just analyze this diagram one by one, starting from the right atrium. So another thing that if you observe the structure of the heart, you will see that the wall of the left ventricle is much more thicker compared to the wall of the right ventricle. Okay, so this is because the left ventricle has to pump with great pressure, okay, so that high blood pressure will be generated for the blood to flow out of the heart and enters into the systemic circuit. Systemic circuit lagi panjang, so that's why the left ventricle is much more thicker, so that it can exert a high pressure to the blood, so that the blood will flow out of the heart with high blood pressure, as compared to the right ventricle. It has a thinner wall because the right ventricle only pumps the blood to a short distance, the heart and the lung beside it. Okay, so the right ventricle, the wall is is not as thick, okay, as the left ventricle. So the right ventricle only pumps the blood in short distance, which is into the pulmonary circuit, to the lungs, okay, to the lungs. Okay, so semua ni saya dah cerita lah sebenarnya kan. So the two atria, okay, so the two atria, they have thin walls. If you look at the structure, they have only thin walls because the two atria needs to pump blood in a very short distance, which is to the next chamber, which is the chamber next to it, which is the ventricle. So the wall of the atria is thin. Okay, so it acts as a collection chambers, okay, for blood returning to the heart and pumps it in a short distance into the ventricles. Okay, returning to the heart, returning kalau right atrium, okay, atrium, so return daripada mana? Return daripada systemic circuit through the vena cava. Okay, tapi kalau the left atrium, okay, it receive oxygen rich blood coming from the pulmonary circuit, okay, pulmonary circuit coming from the lungs. Okay, so the ventricle, so the ventricle have thick walls, okay, thick walls and contract much more forcefully. Okay, much more forcefully. So the left ventricle is thicker and more muscular than the right ventricle. So this is to produce a higher blood pressure. Okay, a higher pressure to pump blood throughout the body via the systemic circuit. So that's why the left ventricle is much more thicker compared to the right ventricle. Okay. So the left ventricle needs to pump blood into the systemic circuit. Okay, so that's why it is much more thicker to produce a higher pressure to pump the blood. Okay, so the heart function is to generate blood pressure, routing blood into pulmonary and systemic circuit. Dia jantung ni dia, okay, dia yang separatekan, okay, darah mana yang should go to the lung, okay, darah mana yang should go to the to all body parts. Okay, so ensuring one way blood flow. Istilah one way kan, daripada right atrium into right ventricle, out of the heart through the pulmonary artery to the lungs, from the lungs back to the heart, which is the left atrium into the left ventricle, out of the heart through the aorta and into your systemic circuit. Okay, so and then back to the heart again, to the right side of the heart through the vena cava. Okay, so you have so that is one way. Okay, one flow. Okay, one flow of the blood. Okay, so the heart valves. Okay, the heart valves between each atrium and a ventricle is an atrioventricular valve. Okay, or AV valve. Okay, so it has its specific names. Okay, on the right side of the heart, it is called as the tricuspid valve. So in between the right atrium and right ventricle is the tricuspid valve. Okay, in between the left atrium and left ventricle is the bicuspid valve or mitral valve. Okay, but untuk awak senang ingat, you can also answer as AV valve, unless the question it wants specific specific names. Okay, so you have to also know lah dia punya nama dia. Okay. Okay, so next is the semilunar valves. So semilunar valves is between the ventricle and the major blood vessels. So the semilunar valves are located at the two exits, okay, of the heart, which is the aortic semilunar valve. Aortic semilunar valve is between the left ventricle and the aorta. Okay, that is the aortic semilunar valve located between the aorta and also the left ventricle. And then you have the pulmonary semilunar valve. Sekejap, kita tengok kat gambar aja. Kat mana aortic semilunar valve? Dia dekat sini. Okay, aortic semilunar valve. Okay, so kalau pulmonary semilunar valve, it is here. Okay, it is here. Yang saya bulatkan, tengah bulatkan tu. So it is between the right ventricle and the pulmonary artery. So this is pulmonary artery lah. Pulmonary, okay. Pulmonary artery. Okay, so pulmonary artery, it carries oxygen, poor blood, okay, to the lungs, from the heart through to the lungs. Okay, so located between the pulmonary artery and the right ventricle. So this is to the lungs. Sama juga. Alright. Okay, so what is the function of the valves? Is to prevent backflow of blood. Okay, prevent backflow of the blood. So it also keeps the blood to move only in one direction. Okay, to allow the blood to flow in one direction only. So darah tu takkan berbalik ke belakang lah kan. Okay, so that's the heart structure. So now we are going to look at the structure of blood vessels. Okay, the function and the structure of blood vessels. So there are three main types of blood vessels, which is the artery. So it is colored in red. Why? Because tak apalah, itu you just ignore. Okay, sebab dia tak boleh nak apply for pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery, it carries oxygen poor blood. Kalau selama ni awak belajar, okay, artery ni dia carry oxygen rich blood. Tapi kalau kita tengok tadi, pulmonary artery, it carries oxygen poor blood to the lung. Itu je yang akan carry. Itu je artery yang akan carry oxygen poor blood. Okay, tapi most of it carries oxygen rich blood. Okay. And then from the artery into blood capillaries. Okay, blood capillaries where exchange of materials occurs. So the wall of capillary is really thin. It is only one cell thick. For the arteries, it has a thicker wall because it has the capillaries has to withstand high blood pressure because it receives blood that just come out of the heart. Okay, so the wall of the arteries will be much more thicker compared to the vein. Okay, so the vein will carry blood towards the heart. Basically, artery is the blood vessels that carry blood away from the heart. Okay, but as for vein, it carry blood towards the heart. Okay, so that's why we have the pulmonary vein. Okay, pulmonary vein, it carries oxygen rich blood. Okay, oxygen rich blood from lungs to the heart. Okay, from lungs to the heart. Tapi yang selain tu, it carries oxygen poor blood. Okay, oxygen poor blood back to the heart. Okay, so ini sebenarnya kan, kalau artery blood away from the heart, vein carry blood towards the heart. Okay, so the cavity of blood vessels are lined with an endothelium. Okay, so endothelium is a layer of flattened epithelial cells. Okay, so this one is applied to all these blood vessels. All these three blood vessels, it has a common layer where they have the innermost layer is the endothelium. Okay, endothelium. So networks of capillaries called the capillary bed passes through the body tissues. So the blood capillaries, as I said before, it is really thin. It is only one cell thick, so that it allows exchange of materials from the blood via this diffusion. So the respiratory gas will diffuse easily across the blood capillaries. Oxygen in the blood diffuse across the wall of the capillaries into the interstitial fluid into your body cells, and vice versa lah. Carbon dioxide from body cells, okay, from body cell into interstitial fluid into the blood capillaries. So the characteristics of blood capillaries, it is really thin. It is only one cell thick, okay, and it is also porous. Okay, it is thin and also porous. So that is the characteristics of the wall of blood capillaries. Okay, so that is the direction lah, kan? So you have here is the blood capillaries. It carries blood, okay, blood cell, okay, the erythrocyte. Okay, so the erythrocyte will carry oxygen, will carry nutrients. Okay, outside you have the interstitial fluid and body cell. Cell nucleus lah. Okay, so oxygen from the blood, okay, from the red blood cells diffuse out, okay, across the wall of the red blood cell, across the wall of blood capillaries into interstitial fluid into body cells. Okay, so itu kalau oxygen. Vice versa lah kalau carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide from body cell into interstitial fluid into the wall of blood capillaries into the red blood cells. Okay, sama juga oxygen and also nutrients. Ini carbon dioxide and also wastes. Okay. Okay, so from blood capillaries, it then converge. Okay, they merge balik into venules and also into veins. Okay, so the veins carry blood back towards the heart. That is the characteristics of vein. It carries blood towards the heart. Okay, carries blood back towards the heart. Okay, so next slide. Okay, the structure and interconnections of blood vessels. Okay, so if you look at the wall of the artery here and also the wall of the vein, it has 3 layers. Satu, bahagian luar, bahagian tengah dengan bahagian dalam. Okay, sama juga bahagian luar, tengah and also the inner lapisan. Okay, so the tissue layers of the blood vessels, we call it as the tunics. Okay, so ada 3 layer: tunica intima, tunica media, tunica adventitia. So the middle layer here, okay, it consists of smooth muscle for both of these artery and also vein. For both artery and vein, it has common layers yang lapisan luar dan lapisan tengah. Lapisan luar adalah tunica adventitia, lapisan tengah adalah tunica media. Okay, the tunica media is made up of smooth muscle. Okay, smooth muscles. So so this allows the blood vessels to be able to contract and also relax. Okay, contract and also relax. So the contraction of blood vessel, we call it as the vasoconstriction and vasodilation. Okay, vasoconstriction and also vasodilation. Okay, vasoconstriction and vasodilation. Okay, so so that is the smooth muscle. So the contraction and relaxation of this smooth muscle, you cannot control. It is involuntary. It is involuntary. Smooth muscle contraction, you cannot control. It is involuntary. Okay. So the inner layer is the endothelium layer. So endothelium layer, the endothelium are found in all 3 blood vessels: in artery, in vein, and also in the blood capillaries. Blood capillaries, it only has the endothelium layer. It is lacking these 2 layers. Dia tak ada 2 layer yang tebal ni. Sebab apa? As I said before, blood capillaries, it involved in exchange of material. So that's why it needs to be really thin. It is only 1 cell thick. Okay. So blood coming from the heart. Okay, blood coming from the heart enters into the artery, okay, into the arterioles and into the capillary beds surrounding your body tissue. So this is where exchange of materials will occur. Okay, and then from oxygen-rich blood, okay, it exchanges material to become oxygen-poor blood, and then back to the through the venule and also the veins. Okay, veins carry back the heart. The blood towards the heart. Okay, so because the blood has flow in a very long distance from artery into blood capillaries, the blood pressure will reduce. Okay, the blood pressure will reduce. So the blood that flows into the venule will flow at low pressure compared to the blood that flows in artery. The blood that flows in artery is with high pressure sebab dia baru datang daripada jantung. Tapi as the blood flows into the venules and into the artery, the blood pressure will drop. So in order to make sure that the blood always flow forward, okay, forward towards the heart, with low blood pressure and also low blood velocity, sebab dia dah jauh kan, so velocity of the blood will also reduce. So in order to make sure that the blood always flow forward in the vein and to prevent backflow of the blood in the vein, so the vein will have valve. Okay, only the vein have valve. Okay, so this is to make sure that the blood will always flow forward when the blood flows with a low blood pressure and low blood velocity. Okay, artery tak payah ada valve. Okay, tak payah ada valve sebab the blood is already flowing with high velocity and high blood pressure. Okay, so the three tunics, okay, the three tunics or the three layers of blood vessels. So kita ada tunica intima, bahagian yang dalam, okay, which is the endothelium layer tadi yang smooth. For it has dia ada pada tiga blood vessels ni lah, blood artery, capillary and also vein. Okay, so it is the inner lining. Okay, the inner lining, it composed of the endothelium wrapped, okay, by a thin layer of connective tissue, which is the basal lamina. So the endothelium layer is protected by the basal lamina layer. Dia kan kat sini ni. So it is the endothelium layer outside ni sikit ada basal lamina. Okay. So the function is to provide a smooth inner surface that minimizes the resistance of the flow of the blood. Okay, resistance to the flow of the blood. Okay, so that is the bahagian dalam lah, bahagian lapisan dalam. Kalau kita tengok kat gambar ni, so artery and also vein. Okay, so bahagian lapisan dalam adalah tunica intima. Okay, so ciri dia, ini awak kena take note. Inner lining, ciri dia adalah smooth. Okay, smooth inner surface. So the middle layer, okay, the middle layer is the tunica media. So it is the middle muscular and elastic layer. The tunica media is the thicker layer, okay, because it has muscle cells, smooth muscle cells, and also elastic layers consists of smooth muscle and also elastic fibers. So the function of the tunica media is because it consists of smooth muscle, it allows the vessels to constrict and also dilate. Okay, constrict, dilate. Okay, so that's why we call it as vasoconstriction, vasodilation, vasoconstriction and dilate. Okay, so the elastic fibers allow blood vessels to stretch, okay, and stretch and also recoil. Okay, stretch and also recoil, stretch, recoil. Okay, to maintain blood pressure. Okay, so next is tunica adventitia, the outer layer. Okay, tunica adventitia or tunica externa. It is the outer layer. It consists of collagen and also connective tissue. The function of the collagen of the adventitia, it makes the blood vessels much more stronger and durable. Okay, so because the blood is receiving blood that flows with high pressure, so with high velocity, so that's why it is the outer layer is made up of collagen to make the blood vessels much more stronger and durable. Okay, so basically in this diagram ni macam dalam punya lab hari tu lah, where you have to observe prepared slides of artery and vein. You have to identify which one is the artery, you have to identify which one is the vein. Okay, so ingat the 3 layers: tunica intima, dalam, media, tengah, adventitia, luar. Okay, and its composition and also function as well. Okay, so from this table, it differentiates between the artery and also capillaries and also veins. Okay, so the arteries, okay, will have no valve. Okay, artery will have no valve. Capillaries will also have no valve, but the vein have valve. Okay, so except for the pulmonary artery. Okay, pulmonary artery and also aorta, where they have semilunar valve. Okay, semilunar valve. So the vein will have valve. This is to prevent backflow of blood. Okay, because the blood flows with low pressure and also low velocity. Okay, sebab dia dah travel jauh dah daripada jantung kan. Jantung keluar, pergi arteri, pergi blood capillaries, baru masuk ke vein. So, dia punya perjalanan darah tu dah jauh. So, blood pressure and blood velocity will drop. Okay, so that's why the vein will have valve to prevent the backflow of blood. Okay, so next. Saya dah termix satu slide. Kita patah balik. Okay, so the artery. Okay, so the artery, macam saya cakap tadi, the function of these blood vessels, the artery, is to transport blood away from the heart, okay, towards body tissues, okay, away from the heart, including the pulmonary artery, okay, pulmonary artery, okay, from the heart into the lung, okay, lung is also body tissues lah kan, body's organ that consists of tissues. Okay, so the capillaries connects arterioles to venules. Okay, and then the vein transport the blood towards the heart. Okay, so kita ada juga sebahagian dia adalah vena cava, kan, from body tissues back to the heart, ataupun pulmonary vein from the lung to the heart. Okay, pulmonary vein to the lung, from the lung to the heart. Okay. Okay, so for the artery, most of it, the function of artery is to carry oxygenated blood. Okay, oxygenated blood from the heart, okay, to the systemic circuit through all these arteries, except for pulmonary artery. It carries oxygen per blood, okay, to the lungs, okay, in the pulmonary circuit. Okay, as for the capillaries, okay, so you have the many blood capillaries forming the capillary beds, okay, surrounding your body tissues. So these capillary beds will have a large cross-sectional area, okay, for exchange of materials. So if you look at this, so this is the large cross-sectional area. Blood capillaries seorang dia je, it has a small diameter, but kita tak consider this sebagai the one individual capillaries. Kita consider dia as capillary beds. Okay, capillary bed. Okay, capillary bed. So the blood, the capillary bed will have, okay, large cross-sectional area to make sure there is efficient exchange of materials, including respiratory gases, nutrients, and also wastes with the body cells. Okay, so as for the vein, most of the vein, including vena cava here, is to transport deoxygenated blood, oxygen poor blood, except for pulmonary vein. pulmonary vein, it carries oxygen-rich blood, okay, from the lung, okay, from the lungs to the heart, back to the heart, okay, back to the heart. Okay, so next, the wall of the artery can constrict and dilate. Okay, so because it can constrict and dilate, and it has the tunica adventitia ni kan, which consists of collagen and also connective tissues. It enables the artery to stretch and recoil. Okay, the stretching and the recoiling of blood vessels of the artery as the blood flows through with high velocity and pressure. So this will create pulse. Okay, your pulse. Okay, so pulse. The stretching and the recoiling. Stretching and recoiling of your artery is due to the blood that flows with high blood pressure and velocity. Blood pressure is due to the blood pressure generated by the heart. Okay, by the heart. So maksudnya the pulse rate will be the same as the heart rate. Okay, the pulse rate will be the same as the heart rate. And then for the artery, it has a smaller lumen. Okay, smaller lumen relative to its diameter. And as for the capillaries, because it is lacking, okay, it is lacking the tunica media and also the tunica adventitia, so it cannot constrict. It only has one layer, the endothelium layer. So it is the smallest of blood vessels, and the diameter is slightly greater than that of a red blood cell. So this is blood capillaries. Dia punya diameter just muat untuk satu red blood cells lalu. Okay, why is this so? Because this is to allow efficient exchange of materials. Okay, and then for the vein, it has a larger lumen. Okay, larger lumen relative to its diameter. Okay, so next, tadi valve ni kita dah tengok. The last point, the difference between artery and also capillaries and vein. For artery, it has a thicker muscular wall. Okay, thicker muscular wall by the tunica media. Tunica media that consists of the smooth muscle. So, okay, tunica media that consists of more of the smooth muscle and also elastic fibers. This is to withstand high blood pump with high pressure and velocity, okay, by the heart. So blood pressure is high, velocity is also high, okay. And then for the capillaries, it has no tunica media, no tunica adventitia. It only has the endothelium layer. So it is very thin, okay. It is only one cell thick and it is wrapped by basal lamina, okay. So the it also has microscopic pores. Okay, it has microscopic pores. So this is to facilitate the exchange of substances between the blood and also the interstitial fluid patting the cell. Okay, so for the vein, okay, it has a thinner wall with less smooth muscle and elastic muscle fibers than the artery, because as the blood flows in the vein, it is flow with low blood pressure and also low blood velocity. Sebab dia travel jauh dah. Okay, dia tu referring to the blood lah, kan, the blood that has flow quite a long distance from the heart into the artery, into the arterioles, into the capillary beds, into venules, and then vein. So the distance is really long. So the velocity of the blood will reduce as the blood enters into the vein. Okay. So kita break for 2 minutes. Digest apa yang kita tengok tadi before we continue with the blood flow velocity. Okay. Okay, class. So we are going to continue with the next part, which is on the blood flow velocity. Okay, blood flow velocity. So this is the definition of blood flow velocity, which is the rate. Okay, the rate of blood flow per unit time. Okay, so centimeter per second. Okay, centimeter per second. Okay, sebab tu dia dalam rate kan. So sebab dia per over time. Okay. So determined by the total cross-sectional area of the blood vessels. So blood flows faster in a smaller total cross-sectional area. Okay, so that's why tadi kita tengok the artery will have a smaller lumen. Okay, smaller lumen. So that's why the blood that flows in artery will flow with higher velocity. Okay. Okay, so determined by the total cross-sectional area of the blood vessel. So the artery will have a smaller total cross-sectional area. So for the artery, the blood will flow with high velocity. Okay, so blood flows faster in smaller total cross-sectional area than in greater total cross-sectional area. Artery, capillaries, and also into the vein. So artery conveys blood with to so many blood capillaries in the capillary beds. So the total cross-sectional area of capillary beds is greater than the artery. Okay. So therefore, the effects is that there is a sharp decrease in the velocity of blood flow from artery and vein. So from the heart into the artery, into the blood capillaries. Okay, blood capillaries. So the blood will flow with high velocity, okay, in the artery. But as the blood flows into the many blood capillaries in the capillary bed, the velocity of the blood will drop. Okay, with the velocity of the blood will drop as the blood enters into the capillaries in the capillary beds. Okay. So the reduced velocity of blood flow in the capillaries, okay, where the blood will flow slower. So this will allow time for the transfer of substances between blood and also interstitial fluid. Okay, so this is to make sure that there is efficient exchange of materials between the blood and the body cells. So that's why the blood has to flow really slowly, okay, as the blood enters into the blood capillaries. So after passing through the capillaries, the blood will speed up. Okay, the flow of the blood will speed up as it enters into the venules and into the vein, but not as fast as the blood that flows in the artery. Okay. So the venules and the vein have smaller total cross-sectional area compared to the blood capillaries in the capillary beds. Okay, so next, okay, so if you look at this graph, okay, if you look at this graph, it shows you the sequence of the blood vessels. Okay, so starting from the aorta, okay, the blood flows into the artery, into the arterioles, into the capillaries, in the capillary beds, and then into the venules and into the vein, and before it enters into the heart, it flows into the vena cava. Okay, so for all these blood vessels, you have to look at these three factors. First, you look at the total cross-sectional area. Okay, so the total cross-sectional area of the aorta will be the lowest here. Okay, it starts with low total cross-sectional area. So it means that the lumen of the aorta is small. So this is to allow the blood to flow with high velocity. Nampak? Dia punya ni. So the diameter of the artery is small. So the velocity of the blood that flows in the aorta and then into the arteries will flow with great velocity. Laju lah. Faham tak? Pergerakan darah tu laju sebab diameter artery tu kecil. diameter aorta tu kecil. Okay, so from the velocity you have to relate with the blood pressure, because the blood, okay, that enters into the artery just being pumped out by the heart. So obviously the blood that flows into the aorta will have a great pressure. Okay, it flows with great pressure. So as you can see, you can see that the as the blood flows in the aorta and also artery, you can see that the pressure ada yang increase, ada yang decrease, increase, decrease, increase, decrease. This is due to the blood that flows in the aorta and also artery. It receives pressure, the same pressure as the pressure exerted by the ventricle. Ventricle akan contract, relax, contract. The contraction of the ventricle will push the blood with high pressure, and this causes the blood to flow with high pressure as it enters into the aorta. Ini kita namakan sebagai, yang peak tu adalah diastole. Sorry, systole. Kan, systole. Systole, blood that flows with high pressure. Okay, systole. So dia peak kat situ. Okay, and then as the ventricle relax, the blood flows will reduce. So this is diastole. Kan, diastole. Yang dia drop tu. Okay, diastole pressure. Yeah, so the flow of the blood with high and low pressure tu, systole and diastole pressure, these are the pressure that will create the pulse. Okay, as the blood flows in your artery, it creates pulse due to this pressure of systolic and diastolic pressures of the blood. Okay, so as you can see, as blood enters into the artery and into the arterioles and into the capillaries, the total cross-sectional areas will start to increase. Daripada satu artery dia akan bercabang. Okay, it branches into arterioles, and it branches even more. Branches even more to blood capillaries in the capillary beds. So the blood capillary, okay, so the blood capillaries will have the largest total cross-sectional area. Because the blood capillaries have the largest total cross-sectional area, so as you can see, the blood that flows initially with high pressure, with high velocity, the speed of the blood will start to decrease. Okay, we will start to decrease as it enters into the blood capillaries. So large total cross-sectional area will cause the blood to flow with low velocity. So this is to make sure that there is efficient exchange. Okay, efficient exchange of materials between blood and also body cells. Okay, so and also you will observe that the blood pressure as it enters into the blood capillaries will also reduce. Obviously, it will have to reduce because as we looked at before, the characteristics of blood capillaries, it is only one cell thick. It cannot withstand blood that flows with high pressure. Okay, so therefore the blood velocity and the blood pressure as it enters into the blood capillaries, velocity and pressure of the blood will reduce. Okay, but as the blood flows back into the venules, so blood capillaries akan merge balik into venules and then into vein. So therefore, the total cross-sectional area will start to decrease. Okay, increase and then decrease balik semula. Decrease balik semula. So because the total cross-sectional area of the venules and then vein start to decrease, so the velocity will slowly increase. Okay, will slowly increase, but the blood pressure will keep on decreasing. Sebab dia dah bercambang. Dia dah bercabah. It branches. Okay, it branches into the many blood vessels. So this causes the pressure to drop even more. Okay, so vein and also vena cava will receive blood with low blood pressure. Okay, so that's why for veins they have to have valve. Okay, valves. right? So you should know how to read these three graphs and also relating to these blood vessels at the top. Okay. Okay, so far, do you have any question? Ada soalan?
Not yet, madam.
Okay, so I hope that you can pick up what we are covering today. Okay, so the next one, the next subtopic, we are going to look at heart circulation, cardiac cycle, and also cardiac output. Okay, so heart circulation. So the heart circulation of human is a double circuit. Ini pun dah tengok dah tadi sebenarnya. I already explained to you earlier. Okay, it is the same thing. Okay, so blood passes through the heart twice. Okay, so the cardiovascular system supply the blood with continuous oxygen by pumping the blood through the pulmonary circuit. Pulmonary circuit is a short loop, which is the heart pumps the blood to the lung. Okay, so from oxygen poor blood, it becomes oxygen rich blood. Back to the heart pumps the blood into the next circuit, which is the systemic circuit. So the systemic circuit is a longer loop. Okay, so because it is a longer loop, the chamber of the heart that will pump the blood into the systemic circuit, the chamber of the heart that is responsible to exert the high pressure, okay, of the blood to flow out of the heart, is the left ventricle. Okay, so the left ventricle, because it has a longer, a thicker wall, okay, a thicker wall, so the contraction of the left ventricle will exert a high blood pressure, so that the blood will flow efficiently in the systemic circuit, which is the longer loop. Okay, so it connects the heart to all body parts except the lung. Okay, so the cardiovascular system begins with the pulmonary circuit. Sebenarnya saya dah cerita dah semua ni sebenarnya. Tapi tak apa, kita go again. Okay, one by one, kita tengok dekat point dia. Okay, so the cardiovascular system begins with the pulmonary circuit. Pulmonary circuit is from the heart to the lungs. Okay, heart to the lung. So tadi kita kena start dengan the right side of the heart dulu. Okay, so the right side, we are going to start with the left ventricle here. Okay, the left ventricle will contract and pump oxygen poor blood to the two lungs, okay, through the pulmonary artery. Yang ini dengan yang ini adalah pulmonary artery. Okay, pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery from the right ventricle to the pulmonary circuit, okay, to the lungs. So the blood flows through the capillaries bed in the lung, where oxygen, okay, oxygen from the capillaries of the alveolus, okay, blood capillaries surrounding the alveolus, the oxygen will load, okay, into the blood capillaries, and then the carbon dioxide will unload, okay, from blood into the alveolus. Oxygen from the alveolus into the blood capillaries. Okay. So from the lung, oxygen-rich blood return to the left atrium through the pulmonary vein. Okay, so pulmonary vein yang ini. Okay, so dia ada branch, okay, daripada kiri dan kanan lungs lah, kan. So pulmonary vein ada dua, satu, dua. Pulmonary artery pun ada dua lah, kan, sebab dia pergi kepada dua-dua left and right lungs. Okay. So pulmonary vein carry oxygen rich blood, okay, from the lung into the right atrium. Okay, into the right atrium. Right atrium nombor 4. Okay. So next, okay, from the right atrium, okay, the right atrium, the right atrium will pump the blood into the, left. Okay, left atrium. From the left atrium into the left ventricle. Okay, into the left ventricle. So from the left ventricle, baru kita akan start dengan systemic circuit. Okay, so the left ventricles, boleh letak kat sini left. Tertinggal kot kat situ. Okay, from the left ventricle, so the left ventricle will pump the blood out through the aorta. Okay, through the aorta, nombor 6. Okay, so from the aorta into the arteries throughout the body. Okay, so to the upper part of your body and also to the lower part of the body. The upper part of the body is the head and also the forelimbs. Okay, tangan lah kan. That is the upper part of your body. Okay, the upper part. The head, the thorax and also the arms. Okay, the hands. And then from to the lower part of the body is the abdomen and also the legs. Okay. So the aorta also conveys blood to the coronary artery. Okay, so the coronary artery are the artery of the heart itself, which supply blood to the heart muscle. Okay, so arteries that branch to capillaries bed into the head and also into the arms or the forelimb. So this is number 7 is the upper part of the body. Okay, upper part of the body. Okay, yang nombor 7. Nombor 8 is the lower part of the body. Okay, so the aorta also descends into the abdomen, supplying oxygen-rich blood to arteries leading to blood capillaries in the abdominal region, abdominal organ, and also the hind limbs, which is the legs. Okay, so so in the capillaries sama juga kan, akan sebab dia thin kan, so it allows exchange of material, oxygen from the blood into the body tissues, carbon dioxide from body tissues into the blood. So the capillaries rejoin into forming the venules, from capillaries into the venules and then into veins kan, into veins. So from veins into the vena cava lah. Cuma kalau kita tengok kat sini, awak kena tahu yang systemic circuit tu dia akan terbahagi kepada upper part and also the lower part of the body. Okay, so oxygen poor blood, okay, from the head, neck and also the forelimb returns to the right atrium via the superior vena cava. Okay, so yang kat sini adalah superior vena cava from the upper part of the body. Okay, so the oxygen poor blood returning from the head, neck and also forelimb, okay, this will enter into the right atrium through the superior vena cava. The lower part of the body, the abdominal organ and also hind limb, will return back into the right atrium through the inferior vena cava. Ini adalah inferior vena cava. Okay, inferior vena cava. Okay, so the oxygen poor blood flows into the into the right atrium, into the right ventricle. So from the right ventricle, start balik semula dengan pulmonary circuit. Okay. So if you look at this diagram, you just follow the numbers lah, kan? Daripada 1, 2, 3, 4 dan seterusnya. You should be able to explain the flow of blood, okay, in both of these circuit, pulmonary circuit and also systemic circuit, okay, through the heart chambers and also blood vessels. Okay, so next is the cardiac cycle. Okay, so you have to know the definition of the cardiac cycle. What is cardiac cycle? Cardiac cycle, cardiac is the heart muscle, right? And the heart itself. Okay, so cardiac cycle is alternating contractions and relaxations of the heart in one complete heartbeat. Satu denyutan jantung tu kan, complete contraction and relaxation of the heart chambers, okay, is the cardiac cycle. Okay, so another definition that you have to know is systole. What is systole? It is the contraction phase, okay, of the cardiac cycle. It is when the heart chamber contracts and pumps blood. So atrium, bila dia contract, that is atrial systole. The atrial systole will pump the blood into the next chamber, which is the ventricle. So ventricle also contracts, which pumps the blood out of the heart. Okay. So diastole is the phase of relaxation. Dia dah contract, mesti dia nak kena relax balik, buka balik, kan? Relax balik. That is the relaxation phase of the cardiac cycle, which is the heart chamber is relaxed and filled with blood. Atrium relax, so darah akan masuk balik semula ke dalam atrium. Okay, ventricle relax, darah daripada atrium masuk ke dalam ventricle contohnya. Okay, so systole and diastole. So at an average heart rate, okay, there is 72 beats per minute. Okay, so in 1 minute your heart will beat 72 times. Okay, so one complete cardiac cycle, so therefore it takes about 0.8 second. Macam mana dapat 0.8 second ni? How do you get 0.8 second? One complete cardiac cycle. Relaxation, alternating contraction and relaxation. Systole, diastole. How do you get 0.8? Hmm?
60 second divide with 72 beats.
Okay, so maksudnya kat sini satu beat of the heart, it takes about 0.8 seconds. So for 1 minute, jumlah dia 72 beat. So 60 saat bahagi dengan 72 lah, kan? Okay. Okay, so a complete cardiac cycle has 3 stages. Yang ini you have to remember. Okay, so the stages of the cardiac cycle, tadi berapa? Dia punya tu 0.8 kan? 0.8 second. Okay, 0.8 second. So it is divided into 3 stages. So stage yang 0.1 saat, stage yang 0.3 saat dengan stage yang 0.4 saat. So let's look at one by one. Okay, so what happened during the first stage? Okay, it is the atrial and ventricular diastole. Diastole maksudnya atrial and ventricular diastole maksudnya the atrium and also the ventricle, atrium and also the ventricle relax. So at this point, all the heart chambers are filled with blood. Okay, filled with blood respectively lah. Kalau right, deoxygenated blood. Kalau left, oxygenated blood. Okay, so relax. All the heart chambers are filled with blood. 0.4 second. Okay, so next is the atrial systole and ventricle diastole. So this is 0.1 second. So after all the chambers of the heart is filled with blood, so the next chamber that needs to contract is obviously the atrium lah, kan? So the atrium. So the atrium will contract to make sure the blood in the atrium enters into the ventricles. All the blood in the atriums, okay, all the blood in the atrium is pumped into the ventricle. The ventricle will maintain relaxed at this point also. Okay, ventricle akan still dalam keadaan relax, akan still dalam keadaan diastole. Okay, so that is 0.1 second. So the next stage is 0.3 second, where the ventricle will contract, and this time atrium relax. Okay, ventricular diastole, systole, atrial diastole. Tadi atrium dah push darah masuk ke dalam ventricle secara maksimum. Okay, so now it's time for the ventricle to contract. Systole. Okay, contract, systole. Systole. Okay, so the contraction of the ventricle will pump the blood out of the heart. Okay, pump the blood out of the heart. Okay, so if you look at these three stages, you should know when are these four chambers contract and relax, and you should know when are all these valves open or closed. Okay, kalau kita tengok phase yang pertama, kan, phase yang pertama, because all of the heart chambers are relaxed, you will observe that the AV nodes will open. Okay, AV nodes, both of the AV nodes will open. But, okay, the semilunar valve are closed. Sebab apa? Dia nak kumpulkan darah semaksimum mungkin dalam all these four chambers. Kumpul dulu darah. Okay, so AV valve open, semilunar valve closed. At the second stage, you will observe that the semilunar valve still remain closed and the AV valve still remains open. Okay, still remain open. But during the third stage, ventricular systole and diastole, obviously, because this time ventricle is contracting, apa yang kena buka adalah semilunar valve, because the blood needs to be pumped out of the heart. But the AV valve needs to be closed. Why? Because this is to make sure that there is no blood flows back into the atrium, and this is also to create a high blood pressure in the ventricle. Okay, so therefore the AV valve needs to be closed during the third stage. Okay, so for all these three stages, you should know what happened to all these four chambers, and you should be able to explain what happened to all of the four vessels. Valves. Okay, valves, the AV valves and also the semilunar valves. Okay, so the detailed explanation sama je. Okay, so first stage 0.4 second, all the four chambers of the heart, the atrium and the ventricle relaxes. Atrial and ventricular diastole. Okay, so it is the relaxation phase. So the atria and ventricle muscle relax. Pressure of the atria and ventricle are low. Okay, so blood return. So this is to allow. Okay, this is to, kenapa nak kena semua blood chambers to relax? Okay, so this is to allow blood returning from vena cava, carrying oxygen poor blood. Okay, and also blood from the pulmonary vein, which is carries oxygen rich blood, to be able to enter into the atria. Okay, so from vena cava into the right atrium, from pulmonary artery veins into the left atrium. Okay, and then from these two atrium into the two ventricles. Okay, respectively. Through what? Through the AV valve. Obviously, the AV valve will need to be open. Okay, and the semilunar valve is closed. Okay, so that at this point, the purpose is to collect blood into all these four chambers. Okay, so next, the second stage is the 0.1 second stage, which is the atrial systole and ventricular diastole. Okay, atrial yang contract. Okay, atrial contract. Okay, and ventricle relax, still relax. Okay, so AV valve still open, semilunar valve closed. Okay, so it is a brief period of atrial systole, which forces all the blood remaining in the atria into the ventricle. Okay, the duration is really short, 0.1. So the purpose of this second stage is to make sure all the blood in the atrium is pushed into the two ventricles. Okay, so the third stage is ventricular systole. Okay, ventricular systole, atrial diastole 0.3 second. So semua darah daripada atrium dah masuk ke dalam ventricle. So sekarang ventricle yang kena contract. Okay, ventricle systole. Okay, so the blood is pumped into the aorta from the from the left ventricle. Okay, and pulmonary artery from the right ventricle. Okay, through the semilunar valve. So that's why semilunar valve needs to be open to allow the blood to flow out of the heart through these two major blood vessels, aorta and also pulmonary artery. So the atria at this point, it is relaxed, diastole. Okay, it is relaxed, and it allows the chamber to be filled with blood. Okay, returning from the veins. The vein is referring to the vena cava and also the pulmonary artery. Okay, vena cava from the systemic circuit, pulmonary artery from the pulmonary circuit. Okay, so this point here, at this point, the AV valve will be closed. Okay, close lah sebab nak prevent ventricle tu tengah contract. So if the AV valve opens, it will not be able to create a high blood pressure. Okay, so AV valve needs to be closed to make sure the ventricle can exert high pressure to the blood, so that the blood can be pumped out of the heart. Okay, so remember, this is the apex of the heart. Okay, apex, hujung jantung tu, we call it as the apex of the heart. Okay, so the heart sound, the lub and dub. Okay, lub dub. So this is the heart sound, lub dub. Okay, so the first heart sound, okay, is the lub. Okay, it is created by the recoil of the blood against the AV valve. Okay, so AV valve pada saat ni tutup kan? AV valve tutup, ventricle contract. When the ventricle contract, it create a high pressure inside the ventricle chamber. When there is a high blood pressure in the ventricle chamber, the high blood pressure akan langgar wall of the AV valve ni. Okay, so that is the lub sound. Okay, so lub is created by the recoil of the blood against the AV valve due to the high pressure in the ventricle chamber. So the second heart sound is the dub. Okay, is due to the vibration caused by the closing of the semilunar valve. Okay, so when semilunar valve closed, it creates a dub sound. Okay. Okay, so I guess we can stop to this point. Boleh ke sekejap? Minggu depan ada cuti ke? Minggu lagi satu. Sekejap ya.